Secret Society's Campbell Brown. CNN tomorrow night, 8 Eastern.
Since he's witnessed 13 of these, I'll ask Vernell Crittenden to tell me in a moment what exactly is going on now. But, Gene, usually at executions there are protesters. Are there any there tonight?
There certainly are none here on the prison grounds. There was an area set aside for them down outside the prison gates at last check. There were not any, in significant numbers at least. But there are many people here. There's a huge horde of press gathered for this. You'll remember that this was just a riveting news story that drew press from all around the world. Many of them have returned to Virginia tonight to be here for this execution, for this closing chapter on this man's life.
Vernell, will you tell us now what the process takes how long?
Well, what we experienced in California, that it would go for about 12 to 15 minutes from the moment that the execution commander gives the instruction to begin introducing the lethal cocktail. And that was in a large part because the lethal cocktail is very thick and heavy in its concentration. And as it moves along the IV tube to be delivered to the individual, it does take a amount of time.
Do they go to sleep quickly?
Actually, in our process, the dosage that we will give them on each of the 3 lethal doses, either one of them is lethal enough to cause death. And they do go to unconscious state, probably within 60 seconds.
Sometimes there have been accidents where it turned into a horror show.
Well, I have been fortunate that in the 13 we've been involved in, that hasn't occurred. I think the closest we got to that was the execution of Stanley Williams, where it took us a number of minutes in order to establish the IV in one of his 2 arms.
Commissioner Ramsey, have you ever attended an execution?
No, I haven't. I would have definitely gone to this one, though, had I had the opportunity. I mean, again, there's absolutely no excuse for what this guy did, and people can claim mental illness or whatever. I agree with Charles Moose. This is something that took place over a long period of time. It was very cold, very calculated. If anybody deserves a death penalty, he certainly does. And, it should be over fairly soon, and he'll be shaking hands with Satan pretty soon.
What?
So if you were in Virginia tonight, you'd have happily attended this?
I'd push the button if I had the chance.
Charles Moose, what kind of a manhunt was it, in the sense of how difficult was the capture of this guy?
In terms of the manhunt, it was very difficult because limited amount of evidence. And I think that when you have a situation where they were killing people from such a distance, there was really not the kind of evidentiary collection that we're normally used to. And then you combine that with the, in terms of no one actually saw them pull the trigger. And so many times you have eyewitnesses. So it was a matter of putting together a gigantic puzzle with very, very small and disoriented pieces. In that sense, it was very complex.
You got one break, though, right? Did someone spot someone? What broke the case?
Well, I think the break came from, one, the very methodical effort by all of the investigators, and then certainly the notes and the demands by the perpetrators themselves. We were able to piece together a number of different things.
What were they asking for?
$10 million. $10 million to stop the killing.
Did anyone propose putting the money up?
Well, certainly when you're in a task force like that, you look at every possible option. So we did look at it, but certainly it didn't go very far.
All right. We're going to interrupt. Go to Gene Meserve at the prison. Gene?
Yeah, and I want to turn it over quickly to the microphones. Larry Traylor of the Virginia...
John Allen Muhammad has been carried out under the laws of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Death was pronounced at 9:11 p.m.
9/11.
There were no complications. Mr. Muhammad was asked if he wished to make a last statement. He did not acknowledge this or make any statement whatsoever.
No statement. What was his demeanor?
He came in under his own power, escorted by the officers. He seemed quiet and relaxed.
He was quiet.
I never heard him utter a word or say anything in particular at all. After he was placed on the gurney and strapped down, he was very emotionless. He watched a bit of the procedure that was being done on him. But after that was completed and the curtains were opened back up, he had his head tilted slightly to the right and his eyes were closed, and that's the way he remained.
How many people witnessed it?
I don't have a total number.
Anything unusual?
Things went very, very normally.
Was there any reaction in his body or anything that would be noticeable?
He seemed very unemotional.
What's the reaction from family members there?
I do not see the family members there by themselves in a totally separate room.
How long did the procedure take?
Okay, great.
I would say the chemicals started, according to the clock on the wall in the chamber, at 9:06 p.m.
And what was he pronounced?
9/11 was the pronouncement, and that is done by a physician behind the curtain with the Department of Corrections.
Can you describe his demeanor and again what he might have said or anything? You said he didn't say anything?
He did not say anything. I did not hear him utter a word the entire time that when he entered the chamber.
Was there a phone agent in his office to make sure that
We were on the line. We had an open line to the state capitol, yes. And before the drugs were administered, the director of the department did ask that office if there was any reason not to proceed, and they said to proceed. And then we informed the warden to go ahead and start, and we did, about 9:06.
you said he closed his eyes?
I'm sorry, what was that?
You said he closed his eyes. At what point did he do that?
Once he was strapped down, he was watching and looking around a little bit. Then the curtains were closed so that the team could come in and administer the IVs. During that time, he was just simply kind of watching, curiously seeing what was going on. Once the IVs were administered and the curtain was opened back up, he was just lying down, his head was down, he had his head tilted slightly to the right and his eyes closed. I don't know specifically when he started doing that, but at that point we were prepared to start. We asked him for a last statement. He did not even look at us or acknowledge us.
Did he ever smile on
I did not see his face the entire time, but I did not see any type of real emotion from him at all.
Was there any spiritual guidance at all?
No, he did not have a spiritual advisor.
Did the drugs cause any reaction at all once they began to be administered?
None that I could see.
Larry, was he sedated before we entered the room?
I can't discuss any medical information.
Did he look at the family?
We could get Peter.
The lawyers, the children, and the family of John Muhammad would like to make the following statements.
Who is it?
The lawyers and the family of John Muhammad would like to make the following statements. The execution of John Muhammad will raise a lot of different feelings for the families devastated by the tragic shootings of September and October 2002, and for the broader community affected by those crimes. We deeply sympathize with the families and loved ones who have to relive the pain and loss of those terrible days. Our sympathies also extend to the children of John Muhammad, who with humility and self-consciousness today lost a father and a member of their family. To all those families and the countless citizens across the country who bore witness and continue to do so to those tragic events, we renew our condolences and we offer our prayers for a better future.
Sir, your last name?
It's John.